Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Fall Adult Faves. I'm Susan Maguire, Senior Editor, Collection Management and Library Outreach here at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by typing the URL on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select show or hide subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting caption settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Golda Rademacher, Library Sales and Marketing Director at W.W. Norton Company, Melissa Croce, Senior Marketing Manager at Simon & Schuster, Annie Mazes, Associate Director, Library Marketing at Hachette Book Group, and Brianna Cornell, Sales Specialist at Shadow Mountain Publishing. We'll kick things off with Golda Rademacher. Golda is the Library Sales and Marketing Director at W.W. Norton Company. You can sign up for her monthly newsletter for art giveaways and find her on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Twitter at W.W. Norton Library. Thanks for being here, Golda. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Susan, and hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Golda Rademacher, and here is my contact information. And then first up, we have a new book by Richard Powers. Coming in September, Playground has a sweeping panoramic scope reminiscent of The Overstory. The book interweaves beautiful writing, rich characterization, profound themes of technology and the environment, and a deep exploration of our shared humanity. Powers juggles multiple storylines, gives us detailed characters that you will grow to love, and beautiful writing about nature. This awe-filled book explores that last wild place we have yet to colonize, the ocean. It has been longlisted for the Booker Prize, and both Kirkus and Booklist have given it starred reviews. And so now I'm going to get a song stuck in your head. I Heard There Was a Secret Chord is by Daniel Levitin, the New York Times bestselling author of This Is Your Brain on Music. One interesting note is that Levitin made musical mixtapes for Joni Mitchell to help her recover after her stroke. The last decade has produced an overwhelming body of scientific evidence that music can help with a lot of ailments, from Alzheimer's to PTSD, Parkinson's disease, depression, pain, and cognitive injury. The new book explores the critical role music has played in human biology, illuminating the neuroscience of music and its profound benefits for those both young and old. A lot of you probably remember Paulina Bren's last book, The Barbizon. In her new book, She-Wolves, Bren tackles another era of women's history. She tells the story of the first generations of women who fought their way into the bad boy culture and lavish opulence of the finance world, starting at a time when no ladies signs hung across the doors of Wall Street's clubs and unapologetic sexism and racism were the norm at top firms. Bren chronicles the remarkable women who demanded a seat at the table. She-Wolves is an engaging and enraging look at the collision of women, finance, and New York from the go-go years to ground zero. The Second 50 is by Deborah Whitman, who is a Chief Policy Officer for the AARP. Drawing on stories from across the country, groundbreaking new research, and her hands-on knowledge of policymaking, Deborah Whitman offers surprising insights and recommends sensible action on topics including longevity, brain health, financial planning, work, housing, and the value of relationships and social engagement. Whitman helps readers prepare for the opportunities and challenges ahead while presenting a practical guide for how community, state, and national leaders can help build a better society for all. Quarter Life has been a big seller in India. Biblio, India's foremost literary magazine, wrote that Quarter Life is in the fashion of the big novels by Salman Rushdie or Amitav Ghosh. Set in 2014, after India's elections swung the country toward the Hindu nationalist side, this is a novel of ideas as well as a character-driven portrait of a country in flux. The book digs deep into topics of caste, intersectionality, and all its complexities, and the read is gripping and incredibly relevant to readers from any large democracy. Mysterious Press is publishing a collection of stories by Lee Child called Safe Enough. These short stories by the best-selling thriller writer do not feature his most famous character, Jack Reacher, but they are still a lot of fun. Publishers Weekly said, "These stories prove that Child has more to offer than the head-splitting exploits of his most popular action hero." How to Fall in Love in a Time of Unnamable Disaster by Muriel Leung is a dystopian novel set in New York City. In one apartment building, an unlikely family of humans and ghosts survives. Mira calls out over the airwaves of her ham radio, trying to connect with her missing ex. Across the hall, Shin, a ghost cockroach, replays his lost life. And downstairs, a headless man named Sad falls in love. Mira's mother is plagued by furious dreams, and her grandpa Y, now a rambunctious ghost, remembers everything. As the world around them worsens, each character must learn to redefine what it means to live, die, and love at the end of the world. This is a story of lives disrupted by climate change, the new worlds being built from the ashes, and finding connection when all seems lost. The Seventh Floor is a new thriller from the author of Damascus Station and Moscow X, and this new book has some of the same characters from Moscow X, but it can stand alone. The Seventh Floor captures the nuances of the politics and culture of the CIA and the Kremlin, and it explores the nature of friendship among spies in an environment rife with Machiavellian intrigue. David McCloskey is a former CIA analyst, so he knows what he's talking about. And General David Petraeus even called Damascus Station the best spy novel I have ever read. Munich is the new novel from the acclaimed author of The Damned United, a novel of tragedy and renewal inspired by one of the worst disasters in the history of sports. This is one of those sports books that is really about community, so it should appeal to more than just soccer fans. In this hypnotic and deeply moving novel, renowned novelist David Peace reimagines the crash and its aftermath, dramatizing the deep scars it left on British society. Moving between the fictionalized voices of survivors, including players, their family members, and the manager Matt Busby, Munich powerfully interprets the struggles of a team, a city, and a nation to recover and rise again. We have two new titles in our Norton Short series coming out this fall. Explorers by Matthew Lockwood tells the history of exploration featuring a new cast, including fugitives, indigenous pathfinders, and immigrants, and celebrates the universal qualities of discovery. Offshore by Brooke Harrington is an engrossing deep dive that exposes how the shadowy global system of offshore finance fuels economic crises and austerity, while also undermining democracy and the rule of law. The books in the Norton Short series deliver bold thinking and fresh perspectives in under 200 pages, perfect for students and for adults who want to learn about something interesting in a short amount of time. And coming in October, we have the first 3 books in the ABC of Fonts series by Simon Garfield. In these books, he recounts the history and creation of the font, considers how the computer transformed type into something that anyone could use and have an opinion on, and examines how a typeface can be used to tell a story. There are stories about the individuals involved in the design and the legacy of each font. For example, in Baskerville, Garfield talks about Sarah Baskerville, one of the first powerful women in the printing world, and the archivists and enthusiasts working to preserve the font's original steel punches today. And in Comic Sans, he also delves into some of the die-hard Comic Sans adherents and haters. This series will be a delight for design nerds and lovers of art history and book history. And we have a great batch of cookbooks coming out from Norton and our distributed publishers this fall. There's a revised and updated edition of My Bread by Jim Leahy, a new cookbook full of delicious dinner ideas from the cook behind the popular recipe blog Recipe Tin Eats, a new snackable cookbook from Jessie Sheehan that I've had several requests for already, and a wide array of other food and cooking books to look forward to. So there are even more interesting titles coming this fall from Norton and our distributed publishers, and I hope you'll check out the full catalog on Edelweiss. We also just had our Winter 2025 sales conference, which covers books coming out from January to April 2025. So I have a quick look at a few winter titles for you. Super Bloom is the new book by Nicholas Carr, whose book The Shallows became a classic look at how technology and the internet affects your brain. In Super Bloom, he explores how social media has warped our sense of self and society. Nicholas Carr guides readers through the dark trends that have always shadowed technological innovation, how telegrams hindered diplomacy, why radio became the perfect tool of authoritarianism, how the Facebook feed ushered in a new era of manipulation, and how AI now blurs reality and fantasy. He uses vivid examples from history, science, and politics to revolutionize our understanding of how media shapes society. It may be too late to curb the super bloom of information, but it's not too late to change ourselves. The Naming of the Birds is the second book in the Cutter and Bliss historical mystery series from Tin House. The first book, The House on Vesper Sands, was a library reads pick, and it got a ton of great reviews. You'll want to give this to any of your fans of historical mysteries or gothic stories. And Victorian Psycho by Virginia Faito. Isn't that an amazing cover? So her first book, Mrs. March, was a library reads pick. This one is even darker. Winifred Noddy is the unapologetic serial killer of your nightmares. This is like a combination of a Victorian Gothic with horror, with some female rage, and a little bit of sardonic wit to balance out the psychopathic main character. And part of it takes place at Christmas, so move over, Charles Dickens. And then here is the link to my contact information and newsletter sign up, and the links to our most recent catalogs on Edelweiss. Please reach out if you need anything. If you're looking for print ARCs, please sign up for the Norton Library newsletter. And then we also have digital ARCs on Edelweiss and NetGalley. And thank you all so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Golda. And now we'll be joined by Melissa Croce. Melissa is the Senior Marketing Manager for Adult Library Titles at Simon & Schuster. She's been with the company since 2020, and when she's not reading everything from romance novels to poetry to narrative nonfiction, she likes to root for her many favorite hockey teams, play D&D, and watch K-drama. Take it away, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. I'm thrilled to be sharing with you some of my upcoming favorites coming out this fall that I hope will soon become your patrons' favorites. So let's get started. Next. New from your favorite authors. In Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, a clever government agent attempts to infiltrate a cult in the rural French countryside, but will she be the one who gets played by its enigmatic leader? In The Night We Lost Him by Laura Dave, this follows two siblings who investigate the mysterious death of their hotel magnate father. Think Succession meets soulful suspense. And Shock Induction by Chuck Palahniuk is a dark, satirical parable set in an uber-competitive high school where the best and brightest can achieve their way into a lifetime of stability and success as long as they intellectually serve the world's wealthiest and elite. Next. And here are some of your patrons' favorite series and their next installments. In Love After Midnight by Sister Souljah, Winter Santiago returns for another powerful, heart-pounding romp. The Shadowed Land by Signa Pike, the immersive saga that reimagines King Arthur and his contemporaries, continues to transport readers to a vivid world of mysticism, beauty, and meticulously researched early medieval history. And Vilest Things by Chloe Gong picks up right where Immortal Longings left off. Chloe herself said of the two books, if Immortal Longings is Antony and Cleopatra meets The Hunger Games, then Vilest Things is Antony and Cleopatra meets The Game of Thrones. So get ready. Next. All right, so I divided my presentation into popular categories for you guys. So first up is thrillers. Next. The Collaborators by Michael E. Dove. Slow Horses meets Red Sparrow in this electrifying globe-trotting spy thriller featuring a brilliant young intelligence officer and a troubled heiress who stumble into a global conspiracy that pits present-day Russia against the CIA and M15. Crisscrossing the world is disaffected millennial CIA officer Ari Falk, thrown into a moral and professional crisis by the death of his best asset, and brash, troubled LA heiress Maya Shu, spiraling after the disappearance of her Russian-American billionaire father. The duo's adventure takes us to both classic and surprising locales, from Berlin to Latvia to Belarus and a 1980s Jewish refugee camp near Rome. Combining realistic thrills with sophisticated spycraft and witty dialogue, The Collaborators delivers a gut-punch answer to the biggest geopolitical question of our time. How exactly did post-Soviet Russia turn down the wrong path? Next. The Deadbeat by Adam Hamdy. The author of The Other Side of Night returns with a top thriller. Peyton Collard was a good man once, but his life changed after a horrific car accident. Divorced, drunk, and severely damaged, Peyton is offered a life-changing sum of money to kill an evil man. But as he goes on a vigilante journey that leaves a trail of bodies across California, Peyton wonders about the identity of his anonymous patron. Soon, his questions become an obsession, and he embarks on a tense and potentially deadly investigation to discover the truth about the murders that he's committed. Next. The Examiner by Janice Hallett. The latest from the best-selling mystery author of The Appeal follows Jella Nathaniel, head of Royal Hastings University's new multimedia art course, who must find 6 students for her new master's program before the university cuts her funding altogether. And the students she finds are nothing but trouble from day one: ambitious sculptors, art gallery owners who are technologically inept, graphic designers who are more interested in money than art, marketing executives who just want a hobby, and seemingly overqualified artists. And finally, there's the examiner, the man hired to grade the students' final works and who, in sifting through the essays, texts, and message boards, warns that someone is in danger or already dead, and that nothing about this course has been left up to chance. Next. Leave the Girls Behind by Jacqueline Bublitz. The acclaimed author of Before You Knew My Name returns with a fresh suspense novel. Ruth Ann Baker is a college dropout and a bartender and an amateur detective who just can't stay away from true crime, but she has good motivations. 19 years ago, her childhood friend was murdered by suspected serial killer Ethan Oswald. Still tormented by the case, Ruth can't help but think of the long-dead Oswald when another young girl goes missing from the same town. And when she uncovers startling new evidence that suggests Oswald didn't act alone, she is determined to find his deadly partner in crime. Embarking on a global investigation, Ruth becomes close to 3 very different women, one of whom might just hold the key to what happened to the missing girl and to her childhood friend all those years ago. Next. The President's Lawyer by Lawrence Robbins. This is a high-stakes legal thriller that is perfect for fans of John Grisham and Scott Turow. After a long career as one of DC's most powerful litigators, Rob Jacobson is faced with the case of a lifetime. The former president of the United States and his childhood best friend has been accused of murdering his mistress. Rob knows that he's the only one who can prove his friend's innocence, but he is soon overwhelmed as he attempts to devise a strategy to defend an authoritative man with a taste for infidelity, serious anger issues, and unconventional sexual appetites. As the high-profile case unfurls, the trouble intertwining pasts of the 2 men complicate Rob's efforts, and soon doubts begin to grow in his head. Could his oldest friend truly be capable of murder, or is something even darker at play? Next. All right, moving on to fantasy. Next. The Crescent Moon Tea Room by Stacy Savinsky. So I read this one, and I know that we are deep into summertime, but it comes out in autumn, and it is so perfect for that season. Ever since the untimely death of their parents, triplets Anne, Beatrix, and Violet Quigley have made a business of divining their customers' future through their tea leaves. That is, until the Council of Witches comes calling, and the sisters, who are, quote, voluntold for an almost impossible mission, suddenly find themselves being pulled in different directions. As Anne's magic begins to develop beyond that of her sisters, Beatrix's writing attracts the attention of a publisher, and Violet falls in love. It seems that a family curse threatens to separate the sisters is taking effect. With dwindling time to rewrite their futures, not to mention complete this mission, the Quigleys are set out to bargain with fate. But in focusing so closely on saving each other, will they lose sight of themselves? Next. The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. So I'm reading this one right now, and I stayed up way too late reading it last night, and I already can't wait for the second installation. The world building and plot are so good. This romantasy debut combines high-stake political intrigue and a steamy, slow burn enemies to lovers romance. After losing her mother to a mysterious dark magic that has since awakened within her, Vasa, princess of the brutal kingdom Asteria, is certain that death looms. Her merciless brother Dominic is also certain, and since he aims to eliminate Vasa as a threat to his crown as emperor, this is good news for him. To do so, he marries her off to Reed, a ruthless ruler of the foreign country Mira, in hopes that he could use her inevitable death as a rallying cry to finally invade Reed's democratic nation. All Vasa has to do is die, but she is desperate to live. She enters her new marriage with every intent to escape it, wielding the hard-won political prowess and combat abilities that her late father instilled in her. But to her surprise, Reed offers her a deal. Help him rise in power to the top elected office, and she can walk free. In exchange, he will share his knowledge about the dark magic running through her veins and help keep it at bay. Vasa must learn to trust her new husband, but how can she, especially when their perfect political marriage begins to feel like the real thing? Next. The West Wind by Alexandria Warwick. So this is the second book in the Four Winds series. And what's great about this romantasy series is that each book can stand alone. They are all inspired by mythological and fairy tale love stories, but there aren't any cliffhangers, which I find to be such a relief personally. So the North Wind, which published in May, was a Beauty and the Beast meets Hades and Persephone retelling. And the West Wind is a Hero and Leander meets Tam Lin retelling. Brielle of Thornbook has dedicated her life to the Abbey in preparation of becoming an acolyte. Her life is highly scheduled and regimented until she finds an injured stranger in the forest. This encounter leads her to the realm of Under, where the air breathes rot and the fair folk dance and whisper. There she discovers that the man she helped is actually a god, Zephyrus, the West Wind himself, bringer of spring. There are a few that Brielle can trust in Under, least of all Zephyrus himself. As she embarks on a journey through the eerie caves and banks of Under, she finds herself in a perilous situation. For here is where faith and heart collide, and where she risks not only her future, but her life. Next. The Witches of El Paso by Luis Jaramillo. If you call to the witches, they will come. In 1940s El Paso, Texas, teenager Nana spends her days caring for the small children of her older sisters, while also fighting off the premonitions and fainting spells that she's endured since childhood. They're only getting worse, and Nana worries that she will end up like a scary old woman down the street, or worse, dead. She prays for help, and when the mysterious Sister Benedicta arrives late one night, Nana follows her across the borders of space and time. And in colonial Mexico, she grows into her power, finding love and learning that magic always comes with a price. In present day, Nana's grandniece Marta balances a struggling legal aid practice with motherhood and the care of her now 93-year-old great aunt Nana. When Marta agrees to help search for a daughter that Nana left in the past, the two forge a fierce connection, which is complicated when Marta's own supernatural powers emerge, awakening her to new possibilities. Next. Moving on to our last category, nonfiction. Next. Didion and Babbitts by Lily Analick. Eve Babbitts died in 2021, found in her apartment a stack of boxes packed by her mother decades before, and inside they contain a lost world. A world that turned for a certain number of years in the 60s and 70s and centered on a two-story rental in a rundown section of Hollywood, 7406 Franklin Avenue. Combination salon, hotbed, living end, where writers and artists mix with rock and rollers and drug trash and movie stars. This place made two great American writers, Joan Didion, a mystery behind her dark glasses and cool expression, and Eve Babbitts, a woman who burned so hot she finally almost burned herself alive. Didion Babbitts formed a complicated alliance, a friendship that went bad, amity turned to enmity. With deftness and skill, journalist Liliana Lake uses Babbitt's, her brilliant observation, and her letters to unlock both complex women. Next. My Life Growing Up Native in America, edited by Illuminative, an organization dedicated to amplifying contemporary Native voices. My Life features contributions from 20 renowned writers, performers, athletes, and activists as they explore what it means to be Native American today. Through a series of essays and poems, these luminaries give voice to their individual experiences while shedding light on the depth and complexity of modern Native American identity, resiliency, and joy. The topics are as fascinating and diverse as the creators, and they're not only an exploration of the community, they're also a call for a more just and equitable world and a roadmap toward a brighter future. Next. The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. An Indigenous scientist and author of Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer harvests serviceberries alongside birds, considering the ethics of reciprocity that lie at the heart of the gift economy. How, she asks, can we learn from Indigenous wisdom and the plant world to reimagine what we value most? Our economy is rooted in scarcity, competition, and the hoarding of resources, and we have surrendered our values to a system that actively harms what we love. Meanwhile, the serviceberry's relationship with the natural world is an embodiment of reciprocity, interconnectedness, and gratitude. The tree distributes its wealth, its abundance of sweet, juicy berries to meet the needs of its natural community, and this distribution ensures its own survival. The serviceberry is a bold and inspiring vision of how to orient our lives towards gratitude, reciprocity, and community based on the lessons of the natural world. Next. And our last book, What the Chicken Knows by Cy Montgomery. For more than 2 decades, Cy Montgomery, who's The Soul of an Octopus was a National Book Award finalist, has kept a flock of chickens in her backyard. Each chicken has an individual personality and connects with Cy in their own way. In this short, delightful book, Cy takes us inside the flock and reveals all the things that make chickens such remarkable creatures. Only hours after hatching them from their eggs, they're able to walk, run, and peck. Relationships are important to them, and the average chicken can recognize more than 100 other chickens. They remember the past and anticipate the future, and they communicate specific information through at least 24 distinct calls. With a winning combination of personal narrative and science, What the Chicken Knows is exactly the kind of book that has made Cy such a beloved author. Next. All right, please be sure to check out simonandschuster.net/library. That is the hub where you can find all of the resources that are listed here and more, which can help you with everything from collection curation to book clubs to community reads and more. Next. Thank you again, everyone, for listening. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of our speakers.
Thank you so much, Melissa. We'll now hear from Annie Mazes. Annie is the Associate Director of Library Marketing at Hachette. Some of her favorite books include The Orphan Master's Son and Lady Pancake and Sir French Toast. Welcome, Annie.
Hello. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you're all enjoying your summers. I'm Annie Mazes. This is our email address. Please reach out if you have any questions about any of the books you hear today. I'm happy to chat with you, send you ARCs if I've got them. You can visit hbglibrary.com for more resources and follow us on social channels. Next up, first up, super soon. These titles are all coming out very, very soon. The Wilds by Louis Bayard is a poignant story of Oscar Wilde and his wife and sons. Madwoman is very twisty, fast-paced, unreliable narrator. What will a woman hide to protect her family? I'll have what he's having, delightful LGBTQ romance in the food world, and Connie, an inspirational, dishy, and hilarious memoir by Connie Chung, who is tremendously entertaining. Next up, we have Let's Move the Needle. The space where art and activism meet is a powerful, ever-evolving social justice movement that continues to grow and diversify as more voices and mediums increasingly take part in it. In Let's Move the Needle, Shannon Downey, an outspoken voice in the craftivist movement for over a decade, meets burgeoning art activists where they are and provides a roadmap and accessible toolkit for every leg of their activist journey. Filled with self-reflective activities, exercises, and prompts, along with practical stories about the work of other art activists across mediums and throughout history, Let's Move the Needle educates and empowers creatives to center their art around collective action in service of political, social, or community issues they are most passionate about. Next is I'm Laughing Because I'm Crying. Youngmi Mayer is a stand-up comedian and host of the podcasts Feeling Asian and Harry Butthole. expanding on Kathy Park Hong's Minor Feelings and Gia Tolentino's Trick Mirror, I'm Laughing Because I'm Crying is a whip-smart dive into what it means to be biracial in America, a country young me did not grow up in but now resides in, and finds her interrogating whiteness and self in a refreshing, brash, and disarmingly funny way. Next is The Power and the Glory, a spirited history of the English country house in its golden age. Historian Adrian Tinniswood reconstructs life in the country house during its golden age before the Great War, when Britain ruled over a quarter of the Earth's population and its stately homes were at their most opulent. The change was on the horizon. The landed classes were being forced to grapple not only with new neighbors, but also with new social norms and expectations. From hands of Downton Abbey or Queen Charlotte, The Power and the Glory offers a delicious, captivating, and often scandalous history of the British country house. Next is Black Girls Breathing, a comprehensive, holistic guide that teaches Black women how to practice somatic therapy as a means of combating trauma and chronic stress. Black Girls Breathing comes from renowned breathwork practitioner and founder of wellness platform Black Girls Breathing, Jasmine Marie. A long overdue resource for Black women to heal the internalized effects of intergenerational trauma and systemic racism, this book is designed to connect the reader to the wisdom of their inner voice. Next is Money for Couples, a long-awaited follow-up from podcaster, Netflix star, and the best-selling author of I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Ramit Sethi. Money for Couples navigates the waters of money management in serious relationships. The guide, structured as a 10-week program, prompts self-reflection and open communication around these touchy topics, even including templates and scripts to facilitate conversation with your partner. Perfect for fans of Sethi's first book, or Get Good with Money by Tiffany the Budgetnista J. The Harder I Fight, the More I Love You. Nico Case is a Grammy-nominated singer and songwriter, and wow, her writing is good. Her memoir paints a vivid portrait of an extraordinary life, one forged through a poverty-stricken childhood in, quote, slummy one-horse towns, obsessive desire, bursts of comedy, and indispensable friendships, reflecting on the way art, music, and a deep connection to nature helped her on a singular journey. Next is The Magnificent Ruins. When Lila returns to India from the United States after inheriting an ancestral home, she must confront a culture that has always been a part of her. Her mother, from whom she's been estranged for a decade, and her family, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, cousins, who all still live in the house and resent her sudden inheritance. A compelling and conflicted heroine, Lila navigates her family's deep mistrust while confronting a legacy of violence in the family that no longer can be ignored. Born in Calcutta and now living in the U.S., Nayantara Roy captures the complex differences between the two cultures and what a contemporary young woman owes to her mother, inspired by her own experiences. I Might Be in Trouble. A few years ago, David Alvarez had it all: a six-figure book deal, a loving boyfriend, an exciting writing career. Now, after the flop of his sophomore novel, David is single, lonely, and desperately trying to come up with the next great idea for his third manuscript. But good ideas are hard to come by, and the mounting pressure of a near-empty bank account is not helping. When David connects with a sexy stranger on a dating app, he figures a wild night out in New York might be just what he needs to find inspiration. After one of the best nights of his life, David wakes up hungover but giddy, only to find Prince Charming dead next to him in bed. Horrified, completely confused, and suddenly faced with the implausible but somehow plausible idea that he may have actually killed his date, David must untangle the events of the previous night, cover his tracks, and spin the entire misadventure into a career-defining novel. Interweaving elements of his own life, Daniel has created a layered story that will resonate with comedy, suspense, mystery, psychological, and LGBTQIA readers, and he explores common experiences through two lenses that will deeply resonate with book club readers, being a child of immigrants and growing up queer in today's world. Kingdom of No Tomorrow. Winner of the 2023 Penn Bellwether Prize for Socially Engaged Fiction. With richly imagined, relatable characters, Kingdom of No Tomorrow tells the story of Black love, self-determination, and the importance of revolution in the midst of injustice. It's 1968, and Nettie Below, a young Haitian student in Oakland, gets caught up in the ongoing revolutionary fever. When she falls in love with Black Panther Party defense captain Melvin Mosley, their passionate love affair soon eclipses all else. With striking relevance to contemporary conversations about racial justice and inclusion, this close look at the treatment of women within the Black Panthers raises fascinating questions about what should and should not be sacrificed in a revolution. Very good for book clubs. I'm cheating a little bit. The next few books are early winter titles, but they're so good. I'm very excited about them, and so I wanted to share. Mothers and Sons by Adam Hazlitt, who wrote the Wall Street Journal, who the Wall Street Journal named one of the country's most talented writers, brings readers mothers and sons. His novel follows the fraught reunion of asylum lawyer Peter and his mother Anne, whose relationship was severed by a decision made 20 years ago. A compelling family tale that also tackles themes of LGBTQ identity and related trauma, as well as the cruel realities of America's modern immigration system. Adam Hazlitt is the acclaimed author of 3 bestsellers, and Mothers and Sons is perfect for fans of his earlier work, Imagine Me Gone, or Elizabeth Strout and Ann Patchett. Next is Tartufo. This is a charming tale of a small town in Tuscany and how individuals and communities overcome hardship together. A small town is desperately in need of funding to repair basically everything. There's missing money, truffles, as well as irresistible dogs, a determined bee, a donkey who was narrowly defeated in a recent mayoral contest, a human mayor who prefers being a veterinarian, and many more characters in this beguiling town. Kira Jane Buxton has an extraordinary gift for capturing animals and nature, giving them voice. Kira is always funny. Readers of her debut Hollow Kingdom will know this, and this is perfect for fans of beautiful ruins and remarkably bright creatures. And The Quiet Librarian. The librarian's quest for answers and vengeance leads her back to her own dark secrets in this novel about an ordinary woman transformed by war, family, and the murder of her best friend. Though she now leads a quiet life working at a Minnesota library, Hannah is haunted by the events of 30 years ago that saw her thrust into the horrific cruelties of the Bosnian War. The Quiet Librarian comes from best-selling author of The Life We Bury, Ellen Eskins, and will appeal to fans of Never Far Away by Michael Korcha and Eskin's own Saving Emma. And a few big books to be mindful of. Lifeform. Jenny Slate writes a wild, soulful, hilarious collection of essays depicting the journey into motherhood. Revenge of the Tipping Point, which always makes me giggle. I enjoy that title. 25 years after the publication of his groundbreaking first book, Malcolm Gladwell returns with a brand new volume that reframes the lessons of the tipping point for our current world. And The Waiting, the next Ballard and Bosch novel. And closing out with some cookbooks, I Love You by Pamela Anderson, a deeply personal culinary journey that harmonizes style, compassion, and the pleasure of vegetarian cooking. Milk Street Bakes is 200 simple, easy, and delicious recipes from the James Beard award-winning team at Milk Street. And Pan e Dolce, star baker Brian Ford celebrates the traditions of Latin America's baking. That is it for me. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Annie. Our final presentation will come from Brianna Cornell. Brianna's experience with Shadow Mountain titles dates back to elementary school, which is when she first read Fablehaven. Her love for reading has continued to grow since then, and she feels privileged to work in publishing. She graduated from Weber State University with a bachelor's in English and a minor in literary editing. Thanks for being here, Brianna. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone, this is Bree from Shadow Mountain. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days to join us. I'm going to be talking about some of our upcoming fall releases, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Okay, we're going to start here with some World War II historical fiction. Heather B. Moore has a new book coming out. You may recognize her from Under the Java Moon or The Paper Daughters of Chinatown. Both of these received starred reviews. This new one she has coming out is Lady Flyer, which is based on the true story of Nancy Harkness Love, who was the first woman to fly combat planes. Nancy also fought to implement a women's pilots division in the military, eventually creating the WAFS, which later became the WASP, or the Women Air Force Service Pilots. This story of Nancy's fight for women's equality in aviation promotes themes of empowerment and breaking gender barriers. There is also a love story interwoven throughout the book as Nancy meets and courts Bob Love. Lady Flyer is set to release on September 3rd. Up next is Beyond the Crescent Sky by A.L. Sowards. This is book 2 in the Balkan Legends series, which is an epic historical series set in medieval Serbia that will appeal to both romance and Bernard Cornwell fans alike. As you can see, book 1 is on there on the screen as well. The prequel and book 1 are both out now. In Beyond the Crescent Sky, we have Helena and we have Ivan, who must choose between their loyalty to their countries and their love for each other while war rages, creating trials for each to overcome individually before they can be reunited. A.L. Sowards is known for her detailed research in accurate historical settings, and Beyond a Crescent Sky is no exception to that. Historical Novel Society has granted the first book of this series a high recommendation. Beyond the Crescent Sky is scheduled to release on January 7th, 2025. Alright, so we'll now move into some contemporary novels. These first two are suspense. We're doing more suspense and mystery than we've ever done before, which we're super excited about, but both of these are coming from best-selling author Tracy Hunter Abramson, who uses the expertise she gained while working for the CIA to craft her plots. Tracy has published nearly 50 suspense novels, but these are the first two that are going to be coming in hardcover. This one on the left is Hometown Vendetta. It's set to release October 1st. Hometown Vendetta features a deadly conspiracy as well as a fake relationship that is becoming all too real. It is the first of the Luke Steele series, which will be a series of standalone novels. They'll each have their own separate plot so they can be read individually, but the characters will be recurring, which will be fun for the diehard fans. On the right, we have Novel Threat. This is part of our spring lineup that we just actually announced today. The cover is just so great, and I thought that I'd pull it in to give you guys a sneak peek at it. Novel Threat actually is about two CIA operatives who must infiltrate a New York publishing house and solve a series of coded messages to stop a terrorist strike against the US. So I thought that it was especially fun considering the crowd that we have today. Another notable thing about both of these books, and really all of Tracy's books, is that the romance and violence in her novels are mild, which offers an alternative for fans of the suspense genre who prefer to avoid extreme violence or explicit sexual content. So we'll now move on to our mystery title. So here we have The Crime Brulee Bake-Off by Rebecca Connolly. You might recognize Rebecca from some of her historical fiction. She's done A Brilliant Night of Stars and Ice, as well as Hidden Yellow Stars, which just came out earlier this year. The Crime Brulee Bake-Off is the first of a brand new series of romantic culinary mystery novels. In this first book, amateur baker Claire Walker is selected to be a contestant on a popular cooking show at picturesque Blackfirth Park, which is rumored to be haunted. When Claire meets the Viscount of the estate, Jonathan Ainsley, romance is in the air. But Claire's experience at the show takes a dark turn when a contestant is found dead soon after filming begins. Claire and Jonathan must solve the mystery before the show gets cancelled or someone else falls prey to the Blackfirth Park ghost. Another fun bonus is that there's actually a couple of recipes that are going to be included at the end of the book. So that's The Crime Brulee Bake Off. It is set to release on February 4th, 2025. As always, we have more proper romance releases coming this fall, starting here with Regency. So True a Love by Joanna Barker is set to release on September 3rd. Joanna's last release, A Heart Worth Stealing, received a starred review from Booklist. This is a classic Regency romance with a bit of a twist. The female protagonist is a private investigator who has to team up with a Bow Street runner in order to solve a case. So there are still plenty of romantic swoon-worthy scenes, which is one of the things that Joanna is known for, but there's also that dash of danger in here. So that's So True to Love. We also have, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we have quite a few other Regency romances that are releasing this fall. We also are doing a couple of collector's editions. The Summer Haven cover is an example of that. So anyone who is interested in complete information about our new and upcoming proper romance releases can find that on our Edelweiss page. We have a proper romance catalog that's completely updated with all of that information. We are publishing a self-help title this fall called Habits of a Peacemaker. It gives us 10 habits to change our potentially toxic conversations into healthy dialogues from one of the nation's preeminent thought leaders on the First Amendment and civil discourse, Stephen T. Collis. The book does not justify the political right or the political left. It is simply meant as a tool that can help anyone who wants more peace in their life, relationships, and conversations. One thing that I think is really notable about the book is that it is very accessible and easy to read. You do not need to be an academic to pick up this book. We've already received some really great endorsements for this book. You can see them there on the screen. Our team is so excited about this one. Not only is it just such a great book, but it's just very timely and very relevant. I think that all of us could use a little bit more peace in our lives. So that's Habits of a Peacemaker. It is coming on September 3rd. Write Fearless, Edit Smart, Get Published is a masterclass for fiction writers by accomplished author and editor Lisa Mangum. This book is like teaming up with a personal writing coach who has more than a quarter of a century of editorial and publishing advice. Lisa has taught classes at writing conferences in more than 10 states and has decades of experience as an acquisition editor and a developmental and copy editor, and is an award-winning best-selling novelist. The book includes a foreword by #1 New York Times bestselling author Kevin J. Anderson, as well as illustrations and flowcharts. One thing that I think is notable about this book as well is that not only does Lisa have a lot of great tips, but she's also really good at being positive and encouraging, as writing can be frustrating and getting published can be hard. So I think that that's one thing that stands out about this book, is just how much she is a champion for each and every person who has that dream and who wants to get published. So this comes out on November 26th. Okay, we have a couple of cookbooks that we're releasing this fall. I wanted to mention them really fast. This first one is Most Requested Copycat Dishes, which unravels the culinary secrets behind restaurant meals by providing 101 homemade versions of favorite restaurant recipes. The book includes appetizers, main courses, and desserts. Recipes are drawn from 66 different restaurants, including Applebee's, Olive Garden, and Starbucks. You have a couple of spreads that I wanted to show you guys. The cookbook includes Zuppa Toscana, inspired by Olive Garden, Asphalt Pie, inspired by Wingers. Also not pictured here is Jalapeno Cheese-Filled Pretzels, inspired by Disneyland, and desserts like Nothing Bundt Cake's White Chocolate Raspberry Bundt Cake. So there's plenty of yummy stuff to be had in here. Most Requested Copycat Dishes will release on October 1st. Our second cookbook releases on January 7th. It is A Few of My Favorite Things, which is a collection of recipes inspired by musical films. This cookbook will transform your kitchen into a culinary theater, featuring recipes inspired by iconic, heartwarming classics of the silver screen. Recipes include Von Trapp Schnitzel with noodles from The Sound of Music, Violet's Blueberry Hand Pies from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and We've Got Chills malted milkshakes from Greece. I've also included a recipe up here inspired by Hamilton, One Last Time Honey Hoe Cakes. The book also features full-color photographs and a pantry list, favorite kitchen tools, and helpful tips from the author Vida Bybee. Okay, that's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Heiresses of these titles are either available or will be soon on NetGalley and Edelweiss. And as I briefly mentioned before, our spring 2025 catalog did go live today, so that is on Edelweiss as well. We have plenty of children's titles and adult titles and even more cookbooks coming, so be sure to take a look at that. And if anyone has any questions, then please, my email is right there on the screen. Don't hesitate to reach out. I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. So thanks again for watching, and I hope that everyone has an enjoyable rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Brianna, and a huge thank you to all of today's wonderful panelists. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, slide presentation, title list, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Whether you are traveling overseas, across the country, or via armchair this summer, we have your next beach read. Subscribe now to get print and digital copies of Booklist and digital and shareable issues of our new patron-friendly product, Booklist Reader, for a special webinar price of $99. In addition to these publications, you'll also get archive access, extra online content, and our 2024 Guide to Graphic Novels issue mailing this July. Head over to Booklist website for details. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. A huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsors, W.W. Norton Company, Simon & Schuster, Hachette Book Group, and Shadow Mountain Publishing. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.